Well, thank you guys so much. There's a lot of value in all the folks that have talked today, and I think all of the information is relative. But it all kind of feeds to the same general direction where we're all here looking at the future of fleet. And from enterprise as a whole, we both represent enterprise fleet management, but as a company, enterprise mobility is really looking and making investments, not just in our own organization, but with our partners to kind of help move fleet forward in that direction. So my name is Jhericka Montano. I'm with the Nevada side of enterprise fleet management. So I'm working with folks strictly just Northern Nevada, Southern Nevada, kind of overall fleet management, where Joe is here from California.
Yeah, so I'm actually from the Sacramento area. I help specifically to government and commercial clients help their manage their fleets based on total cost of ownership. Everything from Modesto all the way to Oregon. So I recognize some folks out here.
But we're really excited to show you guys what we put together, where a lot of the information we're absorbing today is theoretical, what we need to do to kind of move in that direction. Where we want to show you some results and some surveys that we've done with our fleet as well as some of our partners. With Geotab helping us do one of the largest fleet adoption surveys that's been in the country so far with the enterprise fleet. So, as you all may know, Enterprise is a very large known brand, primarily for our rental side, but outside of that, Enterprise Fleet Management, Enterprise Truck, Enterprise Commute, Enterprise Rideshare, we're all a family of brands working together to kind of collect and store data internally to help our clients, our organization, and those we partner with make the best decisions going forward. But right now, Enterprise Fleet specifically is working with over 14,500 either nonprofits, private equity, commercial, and government clients. And a lot of that through cooperative purchasing like Sourcewell, knowing that the due diligence process is one of the biggest hurdles to overcome in regards to procurement. Currently on management with Enterprise Fleet, we've got about 1 million vehicles under Enterprise Fleet Management, but collectively 2.4 across the globe that we have responsibility to be at the forefront of EV adoption, but also doing the research to make sure that we make the best recommendations for our clients going forward. So understanding that we want to be in that position to provide expert recommendations for those that we work with and represent, we really saw many years back the need to start collecting the data and the information to move our fleet forward so that when we move our fleet forward, the partners that we move with can also have the best recommendation to move theirs as well. Do you have anything to that? So what we undertook was one of the largest surveys of a private fleet to help us really understand how we would implement an EV adoption process, what's feasible and at what pace. Where at the time when we started this survey, we were about 650,000 vehicles, and as of today, we've grown to over 1 million, just kind of in that time frame. But also identifying things that we've talked about today that are relative: TCO, the acquisitions costs, incentives, upfitting, fuel and maintenance play a huge part of the TCO overall, but also compliance and what is the result of CO2 emissions, which I think is the big picture of why we're all here today. It's not just about what we've done and what we want to change, but the ideology behind sustainability, which is the reason the Clean Cities Coalition exists. So one of the biggest challenges that we are facing is from our existing fleet of vehicles, whether it be with enterprise fleet or enterprise rental, how can we phase in EV adoption sustainably at what pace and what conditions do we really need to consider to make this happen? So in doing so, Enterprise partnered with Geotab, knowing that a telematics provider, I'm gonna echo what everyone's been saying in the room. The only way that we make a decision is with data. Enterprise, whenever EV adoption started coming along, we did not jump in front of it. We didn't just go purchase a bunch of electric cars, throw them on the road and say we're electrified. We really wanted to do a strategic approach into implementing that information, as well as those vehicles into our rental fleet first, and then collecting that information, aggregating it to make the recommendations on behalf of our clients. So I'll start with the results because I think that's what everybody wants to hear first. So with Geotab, from this study, we picked out about 91,000 vehicles that we did the telematics study with, where it had never been done on the scale that we had done it before with any partner in the US, where we say, hey, if we wanted to flip a switch, if there was a magic switch and we turn EVs on today, what's feasible, considering all the things we're talking about: total cost of ownership, infrastructure, as well as the ever-changing technology aspect of EV adoption. Where 13% of all of those vehicles surveyed, we said, hey, we could economically flip to EVs today. We know it's not that simple, but we want to understand what is the essence of how can we do this suitability survey if we just did it today? So just keeping that in mind. Where whenever it came to our rental fleet, we said near term, the total potential savings, if we many of our clients flip to EVs, we saw about $33 million worth of savings in gas and maintenance alone, as well as 194,000 tons of CO2 emissions over the next 4 years taken out of the environment. Where we want to understand the financial aspect, but also the sustainability impact of what we're doing as an organization. One of the big things that's a huge catalyst for us seeing this as an applicable adoption is folks like Ford and other companies manufacturing vehicles that we can see adopting, where anything like electric pickup trucks we really saw as a huge game changer, changing our metric from 13 to 45%, 42,000 vehicles from all those surveyed. We said, hey, in the near future, we can flip these to EVs sustainably.
So the electric vehicle marketplace is ever changing, as we can see that there's been an increase in overall market share in the electric vehicle space. Companies like, as Keith referenced earlier, Ford and GM and Ram and other manufacturers are constantly putting in money to research and development to create more vehicles and more models into the marketplace. Also, with battery prices, they're also doing or going down because they're constantly investing into research and development. And the other big thing is, I'm sure you guys have been to gas station, or sorry, not gas stations, but grocery stores or malls or something of that nature in the last decade, and probably noticed there's a lot more charging stations, and that's because the infrastructure is getting better and being more attracted to electrical vehicles. And then lastly, growing public policy support, such as federal tax credits on electric vehicle purchases.
Now, where we started with the data we collected with Geotab is we understand that it's not possible for 100% of the fleet to be electric. Many people in this room have echoed that today. But realistically, we want to start an assessment saying what could be hybrid, what could be ICE, what do we not have a solution for at this time, but we see a solution in the near future, helping us understand from the vehicles that we surveyed at what pace to electrify, the ongoing cost of doing so to make recommendations, then of course the result of reduced fuel emissions and as well as carbon emissions into the environment. So the biggest part of that survey for us was understanding what in our fleet is suitable to electrify and what is not, which I'm sure is a big consideration for a lot of you now, where our north star is sustainability, but understanding at what pace we can do so really determines on the technology available to do it.
Now, whether your goal is environmental sustainability or compliance, we with an example that would be advanced clean fleets out in California. I think we've touched on this one a lot today, but really the focus is whether you're environmentally friendly or trying to be compliant. You have to develop a plan, right? So the first part of developing a plan is coming up with a idea on what you're going to do. Enterprise has actually injected ZEVs into our own fleet, and we've taken that data and we bring that to our partners. We've also partnered with Geotab and WEX and ChargePoint to help create an infrastructure for our partners, as well as a long-term sustainable plan. The last thing to do would be execution of that plan.
So just talking about that, we kind of see the steps where we moved through our case study of feasibility, what's right, providing the solutions and building the infrastructure to do it. And now we're in the stage of we implemented vehicles into our rental fleet. We've had them for years. Just kind of recording all the data analysis regards to fuel maintenance, ups, resale, as well as whenever vehicles are in accidents, kind of putting all that information, aggregating it to make tangible recommendations for all of our clients as well as ourselves. So what we wanted to share with you guys is what we're doing with a lot of government organizations throughout California and Nevada, is where all that information we've talked about today, TCO, purchase, acquisitions, resale. One of the big things for us is being unrealized equity, where it is it's a dramatic shift from where many organizations are today. That we hold on to cars, that fleet creep we were talking about, is that we hold on to cars forever because they're paid off. Well, now we've got maintenance and fuel costs that we're not thinking about in the long term. Where is it more effective and efficient to replace that car at a predetermined cycle versus paying to keep it on the road just because it's paid off, where we've got the finance side and the operations side kind of battling for what's right for the organization. But just in this analysis alone, this is one of a government organization in the state of Nevada, where we started at the very top. We say, hey, let's get a sample of your fleet size. Let's talk about the right vehicle replacement, what's available in the market today, shopping amongst every major manufacturer, using factory ordering as a channel for them to have a reduced acquisitions expense, partnering with Enterprise Fleet, but also right typing and right sizing their fleet. There is a very huge case for inefficiency for underutilization in government fleets, where we've got some older vehicles that we could probably just get rid of, but also use some of the money from resale of vehicles not having to go directly through the auction to kind of complement the budget that's preset every year. So we've got 82 vehicles that we looked at in this particular case. The current life cycle on these vehicles was 9.53 years, very common for a government fleet. We took their information in regards to maintenance and scaled it specifically to understand the current maintenance expense per vehicle, which is about $87, as well as kind of planned out what the actual maintenance per mile was for all those vehicles. Now, as just as the gentleman at Ford was saying, this is a case per case data. We definitely don't want to have a one size fits all for everybody. The very beginning of this is the opportunity and the agreements to have a conversation and say, hey, let's get together and let's see the potential that there is there. Knowing that we've got all this private information and the infrastructure to do it, seeing the potential that now government organizations take to their decision makers and say, hey, what could we do? What is the financial impact? Because that's really what's going to ring tone to them is what the cost savings are by implementing a proactive fleet plan. So from this model, we took the fleet growth where we took out a vehicle. We said, hey, this vehicle is underutilized based off of what you guys are paying to keep it on the road. We suggest getting out of it and understanding their annual miles per vehicle, what their current mile per gallon is, as well as talking about the price of gas, which up in here it's a little bit cheaper. I'm based out of Vegas, it's a little bit higher down there. As well as looking at our proposal for the fleet size that we think we would want to recommend to them. So 81 vehicles, that's just downsized by one. Let's reduce our life cycle, knowing that the resale equity on those vehicles definitely plays a factor into the TCO. And then also, if we've got newer vehicles on the ground, just plain and simple, their maintenance costs are going to be lower. They're going to be more fuel efficient. We're going to reduce fuel and maintenance cost in turn by just adopting a shorter life cycle and realizing the equity on resale. So here in year one is where we start. 82 vehicles. They're purchasing vehicles annually. How many do they own? How much they're spending annually on their budget to procure vehicles. Many state programs, the state purchasing in the state of Nevada, going through soliciting local dealers to get vehicles acquired, as well as what they're really getting back at the end of life for their vehicles going through public auction. Now, the leasing structure is definitely something people have looked into, knowing that the budgetary constraints of refreshing your fleet is hard sometimes for the operations side. There's never enough money to do what we would like to project. But in this model, what we are now building is a self-funded and self-sustained fleet that on resale, we can use some of the equity from the vehicles. And once we cycle them out efficiently, we have huge significant cost savings versus what we're doing today and maintaining older cars. So generalizing the maintenance expense data and the fuel data from our clients to understand everything collectively, what they're actually spending, and then we project out their fleet budget. Now, in year one, we're eliminating 20, or we're leasing 25 vehicles, replacing some old, what we see as the highest risk and safety needs in their fleet. May it be older vehicles or immediate needs for like PD or something like that. And now we've got 25 leased units. Now we have a lease expense, of course, with the vehicles versus originally just the procurement cost. But now we're cycling out some of those vehicles, so we do get some money back on resale. And because of our very unique leasing structure, and there's no change like cash transaction, we're able to utilize that equity, keep it in the operations budget instead of it going to the capital budget on resale to build that self-funded model to cycle your fleet. So we've got a fleet budget now of, after the first year, of about $256,000 by reducing some of our maintenance and fuel costs, which is great. We want to project this model for everybody, but ultimately we need to make sure it's sustainable. So now at year 5, they've got a fleet that is fully leased. They're selling off the very last of the vehicles that they owned prior. The lease expense is about $292,000, which is fixed over the life of the lease. So it's all budgetable, it's predictable, which is what we want to present to the financial side of any organization. But also now we're getting that equity back because our first order of vehicles is now being resold. where previously at auction we were getting about $28,000. Now the vehicles that were the first ones cycled are worth $278,000, and that money is going to be funneled directly back into the organization by offsetting that equity into new acquisitions. So over the period of time, once we've first have a fleet fully implemented, we see over the next 10 years, let's run the cycle again, make sure it's sustainable, it's budgetable, and something that we can realize for our clients. Over the next 10 years, in this specific example, we found $500,000 worth of savings by reducing our life cycle, reducing our maintenance and our fuel expenses, while also considering some considerations for electrifying a portion of the fleet. And then once this plan is fully implemented versus what they were doing today, 10 years out, we saw $13,000 per year by making some changes in regards to those factors. Now, the next thing we want to share with you is just now that Enterprise has been working for years to try to build that sustainability in our fleet, knowing we have an obligation to our clients to really understand it as experts. Now that we've got to this point, we really want to share one of our success stories with the city of South Pasadena. Many of you have may seen the first all-electric fleet in the U.S., which was done in partnership with Enterprise Fleet Management in the city of Pasadena, where really, we want to see what's possible, but now we want to see the result 1 year in of what we're actively doing with some of our government clients.
They had the most advanced EV product, safest cars made with the most advanced technology. It was Tesla or nothing. My name's Tony Abdallah. I'm a sergeant with the South Pasadena Police Department. I currently run our detective bureau. And in my second life, I am the EV project lead for our transition project for South Pass PD. We have an existing fleet that was probably end of life about 3 to 4 years ago. So we were looking for a solution to replace our entire fleet all at once. What we found was Tesla was not only a viable option, but it was the best option. The city is very environmentally and sustainability conscious. We got a much better performing car that costs significantly less to maintain and fuel, and also the benefits of the zero emission aspect as well. We found it to be a very durable car. Our admin fleet in the first year had absolutely no maintenance associated with it. Probably the biggest cost savings variable, cost of energy, is way less than what we're paying in California for a gallon of gas. I think initially there was some concerns from the community. Why are we paying so much for cars? But when you examine the total cost of ownership over a 10-year period, actually becomes a significant cost saving. So when you look at the entire package, it became not only a viable solution, became the best solution as well. Officer safety was at the top of the list, and what we found was Tesla makes the safest cars made with the most advanced technology. We had a pursuit on the freeway in the rain. The officers said that they never would have continued with that pursuit in the cars that we were operating versus the Teslas because they felt very, very safe in there. With the low center gravity of the car related to how it handles and how it brakes, they felt comfortable continuing at those speeds. I didn't want to have to ever at some point in time, God forbid, have to go to an officer's family and tell them that we sacrificed and went with a car that was less safe than something else that was out there. It made me really happy that I was able to put our officers in the safest cars made, period. One of the biggest misconceptions, how long does it take to charge? Now, aren't you going to run out of charge during a pursuit? The range on the Model Y is almost identical to the cars that were previously in service. We're able to get about another 200 miles of range in 15 minutes. This is essentially an officer's office, and they work out of this for a very long period of time. We didn't have a whole lot of officers that had exposures to EV. So to have experts in the functionality of Tesla was really important, to provide that on-site training to the officers and to get them comfortable really speaks to the partnership and expertise that Unplugged has with law enforcement. Being the first agency to convert our fleet all at once, it's exciting in the sense that there's this huge opportunity that we believe will transcend other agencies across the world, and being able to work collectively and make this project and this mission better will just benefit law enforcement across the world significantly in the coming years. And that is very rewarding.
All right, and just kind of what he was getting at the end is where, everybody in this room collectively is looking at an option like this or moving towards adopting something like this, where we understand the true power and partnership, whether it be with manufacturers, telematics providers, upfitters, but enterprise fleet as well, being a partner through many government organizations, helping them kind of put out that that strategy to move towards electrification and adoption of EV vehicles. And realistically, it's about, hey, we've all got this North Star, but having a plan that we put into action and now seeing the success of it and seeing that it's making waves across the country is, very fulfilling for us as a fleet management partner, but also in regards to the general ideology of sustainability is exciting. And we really hope that some of the information we passed to you guys today can help you out in the future. And if you should ever need a fleet consultation, we're very similar to Ford, where our resources are there. Just come see us. We want to help everybody progress forward in this room. Any questions? We have a little bit of time.
I have a question. I'm always curious about EVs with battery platform strategies for skateboard type strategies for charging in police pursuit settings. I don't know if there's anybody here who has any experience with this, but my background experience, especially with some fleets that had their own body shops, is that you get a lot of damage to police cars that are involved in pursuit. They especially if they go over curves, they go across medians to get from one lane to another lane. They push things and things don't quite cooperate with them. They've got to go across curbs. It seems like you have a lot of high center issues, and as soon as you damage a battery box, you've got issues of potential fire that you can't predict. If you experienced that, or maybe is there anybody else who's tried to run EV sedans that have skateboard type charging strategies that have high centered their police cars routinely and had no issues?
No, but if they had the accident rate like they do in the fleet in Washoe County, that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
Because again, I know my only anecdotal information is our outfitter coincidentally owns a Tesla, and you have to go to a prescribed body shop to get Tesla body work done. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't be certain. We do our own body work. We're one of the few shops that do. And when they do damage, it's usually the undercarriage that takes the brunt of that damage.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely like a real consideration when you're talking about right tapping the fleet, kind of the things to be aware of, where thinking about wear and tear and damage on the vehicle, something that is kind of, did we think of this as well? Where it really kind of goes back to making sure that the vehicle that we're recommending is right for the fleet. Where you've got folks like Washoe County, they're out there in the dirt, 4-wheel vehicles off, and yeah. So where you have to understand the conditions, but that's where we really come in as a fleet partner to get the grand scheme of it. I'm sorry?
How many vehicles did they replace?
38.
Okay.
It seems like lieutenants and captains and chiefs and those kind of folks that aren't doing pursuit, or they got to go over especially over curves and around medians and things in pursuit.
Yeah.
If you're just pursuing on freeway,
and maybe South Pasadena is so safe they don't have that kind of problem.
Wow, maybe.
But I definitely
NHP would have a whole answer to that question.
where
I'm going to say probably South Pasadena's big factor in how they read.
yeah, and I think it really starts with somebody being willing to make the change and just seeing how it works.
Yep.
to kind of move the whole position forward. But now with technological advances, where when they started the electrification project for the city of South Pasadena, it started 2001, and where we are now in 2025, where we've got Ford as a viable option with the Lightnings that we could implement into a police fleet, knowing that a Tesla might not be the right fit for everybody.
So the 30-ish vehicles, was that the entire police fleet? All of their black and whites that were show use?
Correct. It was a very ambitious undertaking.
Yeah.
Initially, but I think because it took us, multiple years to make sure it came to fruition right, and the strategy was well thought out, it was something that, hey, it's ambitious, but maybe it takes somebody who's a change maker to make this happen, so that we can show the results of electrification, not at a dip your toe strategy, but if we did it all at once, where now we're a year past when those vehicles were taking ownership of the cars, where 1 year later, now we're getting more data and analysis of what's going on. Were there some considerations we didn't think of in regards to wear and tear damage, where, um, like I said, very ambitious, but for sure we've seen a lot of cost savings come from it.
I'm not sure they anticipated that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That would be the case because they do it every day. So
Exactly.
The extent of that. But to Tim's point, that was one of the questions I meant to ask. And when Richard was talking about the electrification of the fleet and the total life cost is, who has enough data in their database to predict what the maintenance cost is in years, 8, 9 to 10 for a full electric fleet. And I don't know that we have enough, strict data.
I think Fremont, California was the first to do it. Tim, to your point, and
the enterprise, we looked at potential leasing up the with Lisa Holmes. I think she's still around, but not in that.
She is, yeah.
And we came to the conclusion that it would be problematic from the upfitting perspective for us. I mean, we have to keep that vehicle a long time because the upfitting, but especially like service bodies. And then for law enforcement, again, our cops, I think, are typical cops. They drive up over curbs at speed. They do all kinds of stuff, and bullet holes, and that's usually not covered. And the last thing I was add, and so there are also three, with Tesla, there's been a couple of fleets, and I want to say it was Crowder down in Beverly Hills. Somebody was really looking at it seriously, and they could not get Tesla to buy out on the update. And I think it was like a warranty for service history. So the upfitting of the Tesla for law enforcement, I've heard is problematic, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is real. It's all considerations. Think something like this is very ambitious, but as technology advances, maybe for any organization, you have to look at when is the right time, because we all know it's not today. Maybe it's tomorrow. That maybe you start with a portion of your white fleet if you're looking into electrification and evolving into maybe even hybrid vehicles, or even keeping some ICE vehicles for where there is nothing to fill that gap in the market. But definitely, I think the suitability case would be where you start with that, understanding, okay, if we want to do it, where do we start? And our main position as a fleet management partner is helping people build that structure, just to saying, hey, we've got a goal. How do we get there?
Yeah, I'd like to know more about the ongoing success.
For sure.
Because we're moving to battery electric, but we probably made more sense for us to follow,
so we don't incur big financial liability when the inevitable happens. The correct we lose about 20.
We do the year to attrition, national fire,
Yeah, and I think that's very from where we come from as a fleet. We're gonna get to you again. I'm sorry.
I was just saying.
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. I didn't know where you were from. I'm sorry. But I mean, to your point, as a fleet management partner, we're definitely not just come in, make you a plan and leave, where we meet with our clients biannually, annually, to understand where their fleet is evolving to and how we can kind of implement ourselves or help them implement change in their fleet. Because like what he said over here, nobody's got this wealth of private information and data, understanding that before we ever talked about to our clients about electrifying their fleet, we started electrifying our fleet. The rental fleet started electrifying and using hybrids many years ago, knowing that we probably need to test this first before we can present ourselves as an expert, but do a lot of homework and research prior to ever kind of publicizing that information.
So for South Pasadena, 2 questions. It showed in the videos that they were using Tesla superchargers. Did they put in a whole bunch of infrastructure for the 30-something cars? 2,
given that they moved over their entire trophy, what did they use for a prisoner cage in the back?
So the Teslas, we partnered with Upfit to provide the partition where
Oh, that's the brand on the company. Is up.
Yeah.
correct. So Up
Partition.
correct. So Upfit is where we are experts at managing fleets, but we're not upfitters. We're not telematics providers. But because we have the infrastructure where we've built those relationships, now hey, you want an electric Tesla? Let's go figure out how to do it. Where we partnered with Upfit to uniquely build a partition in these vehicles, knowing that's the application that the vehicles needed to serve. But also to your tone, where the Tesla superchargers, I do believe there was some initial investments and grants from the community as well as the organization as a whole to achieve the infrastructure to do so. Where knowing in this conversation, before we ever, it's part of the conversation is the infrastructure to do something this ambitious, which is why it took so long for us to kind of implement that strategy. Knowing the cost is the biggest consideration when it comes to any decision maker in a public entity.
Yeah, well, for electric vehicles, right? I think most of these in this room, we're at the second point of infrastructure now, right? We all knew anyone who been in this industry for the last 5 to 10 years has known that products guide for what was the amount floor was coming, right? If you had the infrastructure, every single one you enter. But we're at the point now where we Huntington plugged everything in where you can.
Yeah.
And now the infrastructure is true needs. And when you get outside California got grants, everything. Now I guess it's something they're zero. I mean, I'll say they're not eligible or anything.
On the Nevada side, I agree. Yeah, but just like what you're saying, we're partnering with infrastructure providers like ChargePoint to really get the best recommendation on how to implement that plan, knowing we're not the infrastructure provider, but we've built the relationships to make sure to build that plan to benefit our clients. Sorry. Did I see somebody else's hand go up? No? Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, we really appreciate you guys giving us your time.